Today, we're going to connect the dots between a huge global problem and the very real day-to-day struggle of a small community. We'll see how a major international report on risk and a tiny village's fight for its life are, believe it or not, telling the exact same story. All right, let's get into it.
So I want to kick things off with a question for you. Just think about it for a second. You've got armed conflict, war, and then you have catastrophic floods and droughts. What on earth could possibly link those two things?
Well, it turns out they're the two things that experts all around the globe are most worried about. And not in some distant future, but right now, today. That should tell you something immediately. The climate crisis isn't some far-off threat anymore. It's a clear and present danger, right up there with global warfare. But when those same experts look a decade down the road, the picture gets even sharper. The World Economic Forum surveyed more than 900 experts, and their long-term forecast is just dominated by environmental risks. Extreme weather, the loss of biodiversity, critical shifts in Earth's systems, these are the things that are really keeping them up at night. It's a huge shift in what we consider our biggest threats.
The report brings up this really powerful idea of structural forces. Think of these less like individual risks and more like giant engines that are driving everything else. And look what's right there at the top of the list: climate change. So this isn't just another problem to solve, it's a foundational force that's making almost every other risk we face even worse.
Okay, so let's take that big global trend and see what it actually looks like on the ground. We're going to zoom way in on Taiwan to see how these abstract ideas translate into cold, hard data. Now this graph, this isn't a projection. This is history. You can see a very clear, undeniable temperature rise of about 1.6 degrees Celsius over the last century. But the really telling part, look at the far right side of that graph. See how steep that line gets? The change is actually speeding up, and it's been happening fast in just the last 30 years. So what does that warming actually feel like for people? Well, it means the seasons themselves are being completely rewritten. In Taiwan, summers that used to be about 90 days long now drag on for 150 days. And winter? Winter has all but vanished, shrinking from over 2 months down to just a few weeks. That's not just a statistic, it's a total upending of the island's natural rhythm. And this is where things get a little counterintuitive. You might think warmer weather means less rain, but it's not that simple. The total amount of rain Taiwan gets each year hasn't really changed. The problem is how that rain is falling. It's coming down in these super intense, concentrated bursts. Huge, single-day downpours that cause flash floods and just overwhelm everything.
And here's the other side of that same coin. In between those biblical floods, the dry spells are getting longer and longer. So the number of days in a row without a single drop of rain is going up, which means more frequent and much worse droughts. This is the new climate reality. A wild swing between way too much water and then not nearly enough.
Of course, this isn't just about weather data. These extremes have a very, very real human cost. So let's take a look at who gets hit the hardest. These impacts, they don't hit everyone equally. The reports are really clear that the most vulnerable are the people who can't easily adapt or just get out of the way. We're talking about the elderly, people who work outdoors all day like farmers and construction workers, folks with chronic health problems, and especially lower-income communities that just don't have the resources to deal with these kinds of shocks. And this really highlights a critical point. Climate change isn't just an environmental issue, it's an issue of social justice. The very people who've done the least to cause the problem are the ones who are paying the highest price. To make all of this feel a little less like an abstract problem, we're going to go to a very specific place: the high mountain tea villages of Chiayi County in Taiwan. This is where the global data smacks right into a family's ability to make a living. Just listen to this quote from one of the farmers there. You can just feel the pain and the sheer disbelief in her voice. For somebody whose entire life and identity is woven into this land, a drought like this isn't just a financial hit. It's a sign that the very world they know is breaking apart. And this is the brutal reality of living with these extremes. This exact same community was devastated back in 2009 by a typhoon that dumped almost 3 meters of rain. I mean, can you imagine? It caused landslides that literally buried homes. And then, just a decade later, they're hit by the complete opposite, a record-breaking drought that kills their tea plants.
It's this cruel 1-2 punch that would test any community's will to survive.
So when you're faced with these kinds of impossible swings, you start to realize the old playbook, it's just not going to work. You can't just build a higher wall. You have to find a whole new way of thinking.
And this is the fundamental question that's driving the next phase of climate action. If we know we can't stop these extreme events from happening, then the challenge becomes something else. How do we adapt? How do we build a society that can bend instead of break?
One of the most fascinating answers out there is this concept of a sponge city. Instead of fighting water with concrete and drains, trying to channel it away as fast as possible, the idea is to work with it. A sponge city is designed to actually absorb, hold, and clean rainwater, basically trying to mimic how a natural forest or wetland would handle it. It's a total shift from resistance to resilience.
So how do you actually build one? Well, it's a mix of all these smart strategies. You use things like permeable pavement that lets rain soak right through into the ground. You put gardens on rooftops to absorb water. You build parks that are designed to double as temporary flood basins during a huge storm. Every little piece helps the city act less like a concrete slab and more like a natural sponge.
This quote from a Taiwanese official just nails the change in mindset. The goal isn't this impossible task of preventing floods entirely. It's about creating a city that's resilient enough to handle water, a city that isn't afraid to get wet because it's built to recover quickly. It's a shift from fear to preparedness. So as we start to pull this all together, you can see how the story of that one village connects right back to those global reports we started with. Their struggle is our struggle, in miniature. Their search for new, resilient ways to live is the same search we're all on.
The big takeaway here is that we just can't afford to be reactive anymore. We can't wait for the disaster and then clean up. Building a resilient world means we have to plan ahead, we have to embrace innovative ideas like sponge cities, and we have to work together. It really is the only path forward.
Ultimately, the evidence is overwhelming. From the global risk reports to the withered tea leaves on a mountainside in Taiwan, the message is unmistakable. The climate has already changed. That ship has sailed. The only real question left for us is, have we?